welcome back, everybody. So today's episode is actually going to be a little bit different. We got so many questions from you guys that you wanted our answers to. So today's episode is the web design hotline. Your questions answered by Becca Luna and myself.
Yeah, we're really excited for this one. I did a box on my Instagram story, and I've done this before where I've just answered on my Instagram, and I got so many questions that I was like, this needs to be an entire
100%.
podcast. Series. And so we're really excited. I have all of your guys' questions here, or half of them, because stay tuned.
We honestly got so many that we need to break this into two episodes.
So stay tuned for next week because we'll have a part 2. But let's just jump right into it. We have a lot of really great questions, and they really are all about how to find clients, all specific questions about website templates, making money from passive income. If someone is 100% new, all of these different things. So I'm really excited to jump in. So the first one, this is actually one of the most commonly asked questions, is how do you find clients that want to pay your price? Get asked this all the time. How do you find someone that wants to pay you $5K for your website a day? How do you make almost $10K for a week? People are like, how do I actually find those clients that want to pay me? Even if it's half of that you charge,
Totally.
How do you find them? So what would you recommend?
Personally, I would recommend first picking a niche or trying to find clientele that are already in the routine of paying similar prices for similar services. I find that I've worked with a lot of web designers that try and work with gyms and in-person establishments. And I always like to give the analogy of that. If you think about you're selling the service to a business owner, if that business owner, most of their help, their support they have in their business are minimum wage employees, the idea of bringing you on and paying you thousands of dollars, it's definitely hundreds of dollars an hour, it just doesn't really make sense to them.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard to educate on why that's a value and convincing them. Whereas if you...
I will just say that type of company, because I get asked all the time, you do not charge that much.
Right.
I could, charge $100 for that website. That type of company that you described will be paying these people $100 for a website. Totally.
And so I think that also with how to shift that is what kind of businesses are really used to paying that? What kind of businesses work with agencies and third-party contractors and all sorts of things that are expensive already? And I think that kind of should get your mind starting to think of, how do I work with profitable businesses? Because the example of working with gyms and things like that, commonly we are not talking about businesses that are profitable.
Yeah.
And
not as much.
Or even not at all.
That's
and
true.
I think that when we kind of pivot, I know that Becca is going to be okay, but what about online business coaches and things like that? In this online space, it's this whole vertical that's unexplored. I literally don't know anybody that's not used to paying for services like having a social media manager, a virtual assistant, web designer, copywriter. Guess what? Every single one of those things costs thousands of dollars. And so it's so easy to be that next investment.
Totally. I would say if you want to find clients that want to pay your price, having your niche be people, business owners that are down to pay your price, because they are out there. I would even show this specific analogy is that if, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Chanel, all of those are marketing to people that 100% own Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Gucci, they're down to spend money on luxury items. And that's who they're marketing towards. They're marketing their expensive ass bags to people who are so down to spend $8K on a handbag because they already have 5 in their bag, in their closet, and they're just down to, that's the type of person that they're selling to. They are not marketing to people that only shop at H&M.
Yeah.
So it's the same exact thing, market to people, because there are people out there. And I know that there are people why would you even spend so much on a handbag? But people do.
Yeah.
People want that. It's because of the experience. So if you want to charge a lot as a web designer and you want to go from maybe charging $1,000 to $5,000 and you want to reach, a community of business owners that will pay that, then you need to hone in on the experience, because that's the entire difference of going and shopping, at Chanel or H&M or even Zara. Everyone knows how shit Zara is. Do you want to be a Zara style web designer? No.
I feel like with bringing up like these like luxury commodity and luxury brands, it kind of does go back to the idea of profitability though, because these brands that have excess profit margins, like when we're talking about like using the handbag reference or things like that, the margins are huge. Guess what other businesses margins are huge? Businesses that are personal brands, businesses that don't have any in-person establishment, that likely don't have any W-2 employees, that likely maybe are running a 6 to 7 figure business by themselves with like a virtual assistant.
I mean, most of my clients for web design like make
I just described them.
$5 million a year and maybe has a virtual assistant, but half the time doesn't.
And you know what was allowed with that though? Is that because of picking a niche like that, establishing yourself as an authority in that, we were able to market your website in a day offer that started at what, 1,200, worked its way up to 42, now
16.
Started at 16, now what?
54.
54. That is still an impulse purchase. And I think that for everyone who's listening, impulse purchases and the ability to have an impulse purchase in your offer suite is really important. For you, it actually ended up being this fucking $4,000 website in a day. For me, it was my 90-minute intensive. Started at $497 and has gone up. And that offer is available on my website. For you had this like crazy automated process that you're able to book clients. And I remember as we've started to like both kind of scale, I remember you getting onto a website in a days with people that you had never had a single like communication with. Like they booked, they paid, you have everything you need. And that is all because that they are so used to paying those prices. And if you can elevate their business and help them make more sales the next month, paying you, whether it's $4,000 or $14,000, it wouldn't change as long as it's profitable.
Well, you can even look at it as like, you know, a percentage of whatever they earn. If your website is going to cost them like, you know, what, 1% of what they've made that year, if they make 5 mil, like that is going to be a no brainer purchase.
Totally.
Where if you want to have that impulse purchase, you have to think about like, what is the gap between their earnings and what they're going to invest? Because, you know, this is so random, but when the whole submarine went down, do you remember when that happened? I remember seeing people obsessing over how these billionaires spent $250,000 on this submarine. Totally weird thing to do, right? But people were fixated on the amount, like the dollar amount that they spent, because they were looking at the $250,000 through their own perspective. But what they didn't realize is that if you break it down, if you make $80,000 a year, you know, which is like a pretty like decent salary in the United States, it would be the cost of a sandwich in their pocket. So walking into Subway and buying a sandwich is an impulse purchase. If you're hungry, you're not even going to think about it. You're going to go buy a sandwich. That is how much a $250,000 purchase to go on a submarine was for them. So you can think about it in the same regards when you're, you know, offering web design. If you're offering anything and you're like, this seems super expensive, think about who's going to be paying you. Because if you can get it to be for them the cost of a sandwich, then you're going to be with a killer offer. Okay. What are unusual methods / places to find clients? This is like where your brain really kicks in. I'm going to let you take this.
Okay. So can we keep it just for web designers?
Sure.
Okay. So for web designers, I feel like there are like some sweet spots, honestly, for finding clients. One of which is definitely Facebook groups. And I feel like this is maybe like one of those sweet spots per se that some people, this is their entire business. This is where they get every single one of their clients. And it's Facebook groups for your niche and you going in and essentially just building yourself as an authority figure, likely not even dropping many call to actions, if any, because you don't want to get removed from these groups. But if you can get yourself to be looked at as an authority figure in that group, and that group per se is like salon owners or like estheticians or like whatever like niche you're working in, it can be a total gold mine. Second, I feel like Etsy and Pinterest kind of like go hand in hand, but you can find a lot of business owners that right now all of their traffic, therefore all of their revenue that they're driving is from one of those two platforms. It's either on Pinterest or it's on Etsy. And a lot of them just started their business. Now they make money. And maybe it's like, I'm not going to think or look for a website to try and drive traffic to my own platform to get rid of Etsy's fees. But if it's proposed to me, it's like a no-brainer because I'm already seeing those sales come in. Outside of that, I feel like the world of looking through coaches' audiences that fit your niche is,
And even like partnering with them.
I would say like that's probably the biggest gold pot if you're a web designer, is if you find a coach that really works with like volume-based clientele and you can become the designer for their group or their mastermind or whatever it is. Usually you give them a little bit of a kickback and you become really, really familiar with actually how to elevate their clients' results. That is an easy, like, oh, perfect. You just launched a mastermind. Perfect. That's 12 website in a days or 12 custom sites. Like that is a jackpot for finding clients.
Totally. I love that. I also think that you can just like, I don't know, like once you get out there and you start actually putting yourself out there, little ideas that are unique and you're like, oh my God, this feels like there's like a need right here. Like they will come to you, and being open to receiving that, and
I honestly want to throw one more out there though, because I feel like it actually, like, because of just like the timeline of business and the pandemic happening, it like kind of became a not as big of a priority, but also in-person events and like networking events, conventions, things like that.
Met a lot of people when I was first starting out my web design business like that.
I know. And especially for templates. Like I kid you not, Becca went to this event one time and we actually like ninja'd a bunch of revenue out of this event. But you had business cards only, first and only time of ever having a business card. It was for Bold and Boho, backside 20.
That is like so cute that we did
20% off of your first template. And then you went to the event and the event had a hashtag. And I knew you were there, being this like social butterfly that you are. You're talking to all these people, you're giving out your cards, all this shit. And I'm at home and I'm on your Instagram and I'm looking at this convention's hashtag and I'm literally starting to engage and follow with everybody. And it's literally like, that is such a fucking money maker.
So funny.
It was insane.
Except for the fact that I am not a social butterfly. I feel like people think that about me.
I would call you a social butterfly.
But people I know,
like the most antisocial social butterfly I've ever
totally. Met. But if I'm in a room with people that I don't know,
like a little resting bitch face.
Yeah, I want to go home. Okay, let's see. I want to learn how to become a web designer, but I'm worried I don't know what looks good together and how to pull it all together. Do you have any advice?
Yes.
It's actually a really good question.
Do you want to know this one?
Number one, practice.
Yeah.
Like the more you do it, the better you'll get. I look back at designs that I was doing in 2019 and I'm like, what the fuck?
Totally.
Where you'll just progress, like anything that you will commit to, just putting time. What do they say? You need 10,000 hours to become an expert. So maybe you don't care about being an expert at web design, but you want to just be able to make money off web design and have it look good. Then you maybe put in 300 hours, 200, on the grand.
Call it 30 hours and see how far we get.
Totally. But like if you designed straight for 30 hours and timed yourself, you would see progress.
Huge progress.
Time, like just putting in the time. And then the second thing I would say is drawing inspiration. And, I think like in our space online, it's always like Pinterest, go to Pinterest. And I think that that's great. If you want to go to Pinterest and create boards to draw inspiration, that's amazing. But I also think that there's a lot of areas that you can get inspiration in other ways.
Other creative inspiration.
Yeah, like newspapers and going, I don't know if where you live has like newspaper stands, but like going there and seeing all the different styles of magazines and the way that they lay it out. I love editorial design too, but I can just get a lot of inspiration there. Even like going to old like album music stores, like what?
Like a CD store?
No, not a CD store. Like a why am I blanking?
Like a record store?
Yeah, like a record store.
When was the last time that you were in a record store, Becca?
I don't, because I don't need to draw inspiration there, but I'm suggesting this is a good place because I see records all the time. When I go, like when we go to cabins and they have a record player, I see it all the time. I'm like, damn, this is like a vibey ass record. Yeah. So I'm suggesting someone could go to the record store. Yep.
It's like examples of graphic design that is being able to be translated into like, I really like that.
Anything that has color, images, and text, you can pull inspo from.
Absolutely.
So search it. So then how many web design templates would you recommend making to sell?
Ooh, that's a good question. And I think that there's really not a right answer to this. My answer is 1 or 4. I like the idea of like, we launched Bold and Boho with 4 templates. I felt like really that was like the right thing to do. It felt like it made sense, but
one that's versatile could be so
killer idea for you if you're watching this. If you get people on your website all the time and they're like, I love your website, you should think about like on the footer of your website having an offer to buy your website as a template. And it's like $4.97 or $9.97. And it's literally your entire build that you did for yourself. And it's your first template. And it's honestly probably the easiest thing for you to launch to as your first.
I literally love that. But yes, I agree. I sometimes go to template shops and I'm like, and sometimes it totally works. You know, I think of like Tonic, like they have like so many and it clearly works for them. So not trying to like dog on it, do what works for you. But I do think they obviously have a huge reputation for templates.
And they also mainly focus on templates.
I think it's a little bit different being, you know, a smaller brand and you're going to be working with, you know, probably more like beginner businesses that are looking for websites, especially in the beginning. And they're going to be overwhelmed. And the last thing you want someone to do is be overwhelmed before purchase, because it'll actually make them not want to purchase. It's like the number one killer of people making like impulse purchases. So trying to actually keep it simple and not feeling like you need to like overcompensate with templates is going to be actually really favorable.
I also think that with that, having had 4 templates and then we launched brand kits, then we launched more templates, you always, if you're like, no matter what kind of e-commerce shop you have, whether you're selling website templates, you're selling clothes, you're selling candy, whatever it is, you're going to have a hero SKU, meaning that it is your most sold product. And for us, we had a most sold template.
And I think actually when I think about the, you know, months that we had the highest sales for the templates, we had like 3 that were popping off. So
3 out of the 8 at the time.
So it proves the theory that like you could have under 4 and have it pop
100%. Yeah. And that even if you were to be like, fuck Becca's idea of launching with 1 or 4, I'm launching with 15. Not all 15 are going to sell very well. Like no matter what, we'll still find that you have total winners, total losers, and then some in between.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. As a web designer, do you have to include branding? So no, you don't have to do anything. Yeah. I think that's such like a almost misconception when you're starting your business, is that there's like a right way to do it. And there's really not. It's not black and white. You don't have to do anything. If you straight up don't want to do branding, but you just love web design, great. Find someone who just does branding, because you know that there's a ton of them out there that don't do web design.
Absolutely.
And partner with them. Create a collaborative, you know, package or whatever it is, or just do very basic branding where you're not, you know, creating like an illustrated logo, but you're creating the concept and a color palette and, you know, font pairings. But really, like, don't feel like you have to do anything. I just don't think that that's necessary.
Can I dig a little deeper on that one? Having experienced you as well as countless other web designers as clients. So I feel like it's a little bit interesting too, because you have found it's not even a niche. It's actually just you've found a relationship with your clients of finding clients that don't necessarily need all of the branding and don't necessarily want it. And therefore the offers that you put out are so attractive to them. And I feel like I've worked with a lot of people that honestly struggle to find business owner clients that aren't looking for like everything under the sun to be offered to them. Do you feel like you have any like advice for people that are listening to this and are thinking, okay, like maybe right now I work with salon owners, but I feel like I have to create this whole wordmark logo and like custom fonts and all this stuff, and it just feels so overwhelming. I feel like you've really found this kind of sweet spot within your offerings to really focus on what you do so well. And also, I feel like when my clients are like, wait, but Becca doesn't do all that, they're like shocked. And I feel like you found such a sweet spot with it. And I'm curious if you have like feedback or like ideas for people that right now are feeling like they're struggling to like essentially tell their clients that they don't do everything.
Yeah, I think I just gave that advice. Literally, you don't have to do what you don't want to do. Don't overcompensate it. Don't feel like you have to do anything.
You feel like it's just that simple.
I literally think, we overcomplicate it and feel like we have to deliver X, Y, and Z because you saw the girl next door deliver X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But I knew what I like to do and what I don't want to do. and what I wasn't good at. And I don't want to charge for things that I'm not good at. And, you know, even things that like caused me anxiety, like I don't have to do this. Like if it's really important to them, I will, you know, help them find someone who's really good at it, or, you know, like send them on their way if it's not a good fit. But the people that came to me were totally happy with what I delivered. And yeah, I just don't think that like you have to do anything just because you might think that you have to.
Totally.
Okay. Do you use your Showit account or your clients to design their website? So this one's super simple. I would design all of my clients' websites in my account. And then once it's done and ready to be passed over to do the domain transfer and get published, that's when then it would go into their account. I teach that inside CEO of Showit. But yeah, I would definitely have it in your account. That way that, you know, clients don't go in and like fuck up shit while you're in the designing process, because I have done it both ways. In the very beginning phases, I'd be doing it in there, and then they'd message me and be like, what is this? And I'm like, oh my God, it's literally not done at all. Yeah. So yeah, I think that it's like, if you were a photographer, would you be editing their Lightroom photos in their Lightroom account? No, you're going to send them the finished product. So I think like if it's in your account, you get to control it so much more. And I just like to have that control. So how long will it take to land a client if I'm 100% new to Showit, design, and TikTok? I think it's all really relative to where you're coming from, the experience that you have, who your niche is, and like, you know, where that past experience lays, and how much you want to show up on those things.
Feel like it's very tied to your investment level into your showing up online. And I know that it sounds like simple. It's like, oh, all I have to do is show up. And it's a lot actually harder than that when you are beginning. And I think that to actually answer the question, I think that you are 30 to 90 days out. I think that realistically, you could do it in as little as like 14 if you were like, I'm going to just go balls to the wall crazy with it. I'm going to put myself out there in so many ways that I haven't in the past, things like that. I also think that it's really realistic to think that it might take 2 months of trying.
Yeah. I think that there's also like the learning time.
Exactly. And I feel like that is a piece of web design and going into a web design business that does need to kind of be looked at as different.
Well, because there's a difference between the learning phase and the implementation phase. So if you're just an implementation, it should take 2 weeks.
Sure.
But it'll take you time to learn, and everyone has a different learning, you know, style and process. And so I think it really is so different. But we have seen, you know, I have seen people within a week book a client.
Yep.
And I also have seen it take 3 months for them to book a couple of clients. And so it really just is so different. But I think if you ask yourself, like, how committed and how dedicated and how like fast am I willing to move? And depending on your own answers, like you'll come to your own discovery. Okay. So how do you declare that from now on you're a designer? I've been a teacher for 10 years.
This is good.
That's a good one.
So back to showing up on social media, because that's kind of where you're declaring it. I think that first of all, it doesn't have to just be this black and white declaration and then boom, I'm done, I'm out, and I'm completely this. I think that there's actually something to be said about that transitional period where you start to show people, hey, I'm also designing. Hey, I am doing this more frequently, kind of putting your design, your new thing, your new business in front of people in a way that it's not just black and white, like, hey, boom, hey, guess what, guys, today I woke up as a web designer. It's like, hey,
like showing people the journey while you're learning.
Exactly.
Be the best
even
thing
like
to do.
showing, hey, I'm starting to learn web design. I even like, maybe I just bought this course from some girl that I found on TikTok and I'm starting to learn it. Like, wish me luck. I'm going to keep you guys updated. I think that giving, even if your audience is so small, even if you're starting from zero, giving people the opportunity to actually come along with your journey of finding new things out, learning how to do your own website. You launched your own website because as you launch your own website and then you start to show up and then you get your first client, all of these things, they're actually all big milestones. And I feel like people like to watch that and enjoy that with you.
Yeah. I think I'll speak on the logistical side as of becoming a web designer of what I think is actually like really appropriate to almost like get to before you declare that you're a web designer is if you have your business set up, so you have your LLC, you have your business bank account, you're ready to take on clients, you have your application, your website's ready to go, like you are a business. And then also you feel confident in taking money and designing and delivering a website, you can declare you're a web designer. But I personally feel like until then, you are in the learning phase.
100%.
So you can be transparent in that. That is when you do your beta round. That is when you have contracts that, you know, acknowledge that you're learning and you're setting those up and that you'll improve the experience post that project. But until then, I think really honing in, like once you go through and implement Wealthy Web Designer and CEO of Showit, then you are a web designer. You should be ready to go and, you know, feel really confident in that. I will also just add that, you know, you probably for your first time will second guess and keep yourself from feeling even confident, but you're going to have to push through that and just push yourself out of your element because, you know, imposter syndrome is real. And I think in that beginning phase, everyone feels it a little bit or a lot of it. And so I think making sure that you're like reflecting and checking in and just like looking at it from a very like logistical standpoint and being like, okay, you know, these are all the things that I have in place. Like I'm ready to go. Even if I don't feel it, you will get to be more confident the more you know, work with clients. But I think just looking at it from like a checklist standpoint, and once you have all the stuff done and ready to go, then you can declare it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you ever have problems with getting prep work or feedback from your clients? So this is a great question. I actually get this all the time when I talk about my website in a day offer. People are always like, how do you get your images? How do you get the copy prior and so that you can deliver a website in a day? And it's because I've streamlined my service so that as soon as someone pays the invoice, they get to a page where they get all the access that they would need to hand over basically everything I need. So I'm like one step ahead of them where I then am right away setting those expectations. And I'm like, this is what I need. I also think that having really clear communication prior to signing the client also really helps because, you know, as you're signing them on, being like, okay, you know, this is our start date. Just want to confirm that you're going to have X, Y, and Z by blank. And you can set those expectations up, but you know, making sure that you do that like as soon as possible is going to be the best thing you can do. Ooh, this is a good one. Can you explain what you mean when you say I don't code? Like, how do you build a website without code? I'll let you take this.
You want me to say this one?
Do you want me to take it?
I mean, I could definitely take a stab.
I feel like I'll take a stab.
Stab me.
Literally, we have a fire podcast episode all about coding and how coding is dead and that you don't need a code to build a website. So let's actually just keep it short and simple and go listen to that episode because it is so good. But I will just have a disclaimer that you do not need to code to build a website. And you can learn all about it in the past episode.
Yeah, the platforms are doing it for you.
Totally. Okay. When creating your own brand, how did you learn about the tax side of it?
That's a good one. I would say that first of all, I quickly and immediately learned that I knew nothing about it. And then I was able to start probably learning the right things. And also I will just say that Becca and myself are not financial advisors. We are not able to actually recommend that you do things or, you know, don't do things or things like that around taxes. But I will give some personal experience and some failures as well as really good lessons learned. Biggest failure was that we didn't take taxes and entities seriously in our first 12-ish months like we should have. And so we had to play a lot of catch up as we started to really grow and the clients were actually coming. Second is what Becca says, what we teach in Wealthy Web Designer of getting an EIN, getting a business bank account, stopping using your personal cards for anything business, starting to learn how to actually write things off in your business. All of that, I would say it's really important. It's really boring at the beginning because it doesn't feel applicable, but I will tell you when it becomes applicable. It becomes very applicable when you have worked your ass off for the last X amount of time, whether it was a year or months, whatever. And then you have to pay taxes and you realize that if you would have paid more attention, the amount that you'd be sending right now would be a fraction. And so I think that that is like really important.
And also, I will just say, like, we obviously are not tax like people. I actually personally hate it. I think it's that creative brain. I think if you're going to be a web designer, you're probably creative. And so taxes probably, you know, want to make you like rip your hair out. But just like everything, you can find education. Like, go look up on YouTube, watch, get on the TikTok like tax side.
I honestly feel like TikTok and following like some specific attorneys, make sure that they're like actually certified professionals in this world. But if you watch it, and I don't know that guy's name, but I'll try and like maybe find it and post about it on my Instagram. But there's a guy that he's an attorney and he reviews all these content creators' videos talking about tax things. And then he tells you if it's true or if it's not. And I think that there's like a lot of like these things where as you do become a business owner that is becoming profitable and becoming more efficient and things like that, taxes are also one of those things that I would say is one of the first things that you should outsource help with. I would say that when you have hit the $10,000 month over and over again,
or even like 7, to be honest.
Let's say that you hit $100,000. Yeah. $8,000 a month. Once you're at over 100K, I would say it's probably really worth paying a CPA to do your taxes. It shouldn't be more than like $2,000 at the end of the year to do it.
And it's a write-off.
It's also a write-off. So are our courses. And the other thing I would say is, if you are surpassing those numbers, start thinking about becoming an S Corp and like really upping your information around taxes, because there is a lot more that you can start to play with when you are making more money, that you can start investing the money. Also, I just want to throw this out there. This was something that I totally didn't learn, and I hope that all of you guys that are listening to this can take something from this, is that even if you are not reaching a 10K month, but you are reaching a time in your business that you do feel like you are starting to be able to just start saving money. There is money that is coming in that does feel a little bit like excess, like it doesn't need to go to bills and things like that. Start putting money into a set IRA. If you are a business owner, especially if you're a young business owner, you can put up to 25% of how much money you make into this account. And then this account just works as a vehicle for you to put it into the S&P 500, for you to put it into other things. But that money is a deduction. You can't pull it out until you're 54, but it's all tax-free, and it is the exact same thing as having a 401k if you were a W-2.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Okay. And then how do you respond to clients when they ask you to do something, but you're unsure how?
I feel like you should take this one because it comes out more in design.
I would say 2 things. One, you know, saying like, one thing. Figuring it out. Be like, okay, I'm going to go figure it out. I maybe if, you know, it's on Zoom and they ask you just straight up, be like, that's a great question. Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah.
And then get off and go YouTube, go Google, go ask me, go into the circle community, whatever it is you need to do, but like almost like fake it till you make it and then come back to them when you have a fire answer. Okay. That's one way. 2, realize right away if it's in your scope or if it's not, because the first one should be if it's in your scope. And it's a learning lesson. You're literally getting paid to learn that answer because you probably acknowledge that you should just know that answer.
And in the future, you will then know the answer.
But if it's not, and it's like feels not aligned and you're like, oh, that seems way off. I don't know the answer, but like, why should I know the answer? Then acknowledge that.
And like, maybe draw the boundary.
Totally. And be like, I'm just going to be honest with you. This is like totally out of my scope. I'm not 100% sure and I don't want to mislead you. But I would recommend you going to blank.
Do you have any
looking up on TikTok or whatever it is?
Do you have any good examples of things that you've drawn that boundary for, especially like within website in a day clients and things like that?
I mean, I definitely have had people ask me questions about like funnels or like some way that like their client is booking them, like something totally with a different platform on, you know, it like I could see how they think it has to do with their website, but it actually doesn't, because they have a VA that set something up on MailChimp and I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't use MailChimp myself. I have an affiliate code for Flowdesk if you want to switch, but yeah, that's definitely a time that I'd be like, I'm going to be totally honest. I actually don't know. I'm not, you know, familiar with MailChimp. I wish I could help you, but maybe, you know, I know blank who does MailChimp. Let me like refer you.
Yep.
So I think being totally honest and acknowledging when it's not not in your lane
Yep.
and staying in your lane. Okay. And then the last one is, are there any online courses you'd recommend for honing in on our skills? That's a good one. I feel like our skills are relative to whatever the skills are. I would say that if you're like 100% just starting out, just like observing free content and like going onto YouTube and, you know, following on Instagram, TikTok, like I even provide so much
people's
free
freebies
stuff.
also. Like our creative career course literally is like an hour-long free course.
And just like walks you through what it would be like to become a web designer.
Other people, if you're interested in learning copy, if you're learning marketing, like social media, pretty much everyone that you can look at as a leader has a free version of their education that you can start to consume.
Yeah.
And I feel like that part is so often like neglected because it's like at the beginning, don't spend money until you feel like you actually want to do this. Like figure out if you can see yourself doing it, because the last thing you want to do is purchase 100%. This thing, education, realize this fucking sucks. I don't want to do this at all. And then you're like, fuck, why did I just do that?
Well, and I even think of like our podcast and all of the stories that I do and all of the short form videos, like they are like mini little segments 100%. Of courses. And so, yeah. And I'm not the only one out there. You know, there's so many different topics and so many different like avenues that you could go. And so, yeah, really like figuring that out. And then, you know, obviously there's a ton. I'm going to shameless plug my own. If you want to learn actual like web design and how to design and develop sites on Showit, I would do see of Showit. And then if you want to do all the business things, all those questions about, you know, how to feel confident pricing yourself, working with clients, streamlining, setting yourself up and declaring that you're a web designer, take Wealthy Web Designer 100%. And start there. And then really all the other resources that I have are extra if you want a day rate, you know, template shop, all those things. But yeah, definitely there's a ton of options out there for you. And so I hope that these were helpful.
Honestly,
come back for part 2 next week. And also always feel free to comment on any of our videos or DM us any questions that you have. And we will just continue to create content based around what you want. So with that, we'll see you guys next week.